Listening passage. The following passage is from an article entitled Chilling in Antarctica by Chris Connolly, published in AAA Going Places in January-February 2010. In this excerpt, Connolly discusses the spectacular scenery at the bottom of the world. I'm wearing snow pants for the first time since childhood, and I have on the same coat I wore several years ago while covering the Iditarod sled dog race across Alaska. This coat comes with an extra dense fleece lining that can be unzipped and removed, and despite living in Wisconsin, where winter temperatures routinely dip into the -30s, this is the first time I've ever needed to use the lining. The ship's deck I'm standing on is wet with spray, and we are really rocking and rolling. The seas in the Drake Passage are the roughest in the world. The only people who live in Antarctica are scientists and people who are paid to live in Antarctica. In 1959, the governments of the world decided not to fight over Antarctica. They declared it an internationally controlled center for scientific research and agreed that no one would ever own it. Several countries, among them Chile, Argentina, and the US, do maintain a year-round presence in Antarctica, so that if vast oil fields or plutonium deposits are ever discovered there, they'll be able to say, "Hey, we've had a presence in Antarctica for years." But beyond researchers and these professional Antarctica inhabitants, the only other humans on the continent are the tourists. The ship that brought me to Antarctica is a smaller ship. There are several cruise lines that sail to Antarctica, from small to very large. Think floating resort, depending on your preference. Small ships can bring you in a little closer to the action and offer a more intimate setting, while larger ships provide more stability for rugged waters and greater onboard amenities. Upon arrival to Antarctica, you spend your days island hopping, sailing from site to site and making landings via Zodiac boat on icebergs, in stunning bays and on black sandy beaches. While sailing from place to place is thrilling, you see whales, seals, sea lions, penguins, and immense blue glowing icebergs. The shore excursions, of course, are the highlights of any trip. Antarctica is a land of extremes, technically a desert. It's Earth's coldest, driest, highest, and windiest place. And the first landing we made on the island of Barrientos presented us with the complete package. To our right loomed a stark and craggy rock formation bedecked with thousands of juvenile gentoo penguins. To our left lay a 40-foot-long dried-out whale skeleton, a couple big chunks of iceberg, and a fur seal who lolled his head over to one side and regarded us quizzically. For many of us, myself included, this was the big moment. It was official. I had been to Antarctica. There is a type of ice all over Antarctica called blue ice. Blue ice is formed at the very deepest layers of icebergs and glaciers when, over millions of years, the oxygen within the ice is forced out by the weight of the material on top. In small chunks, this incredibly dense ice is perfectly clear, so clear that once you see it, you realize you've never seen clear ice before. And in large chunks, it absorbs light at the red end of the spectrum and appears to glow blue, as if from some inner source of illumination. I sat down on a chunk of this blue ice and looked around me. The seas in the bay were perfectly still, and off in the distance immense, blindingly white mountains clambered skyward. Overhead, albatross and giant petrels soared in lacy circles, but other than the gentle movements of their wings, the world was frozen and utterly silent. I thought about all the maps I'd be able to point to and say, "I've been there," when suddenly I felt something tugging gently on the cuff of my right pants leg. Maintaining my serenity, I looked down and saw a little fat penguin climbing onto my boot. I didn't move a muscle. Egged on by a few of his friends, the brave little guy grabbed a snatch of fabric in his beak and hauled himself up to look at me. His feathers were sleek and glossy, his eyes sharp and penetrating. We spent several moments checking each other out. Then he hopped off and waddled back over to rejoin his friends. I had many magical moments in Antarctica, climbing a snowy mountain on Deception Island, watching building-sized chunks of glacier break off and fall into the sea with a crack like cannon fire, swimming in the Southern Ocean at the foot of an active volcano, where the subterranean lava heats the water to near pleasant temperatures. But of all the wonderful moments I had, my favorite was the first one, when I initially and officially set foot on the continent, and a resident penguin jumped on my leg and said, "Welcome." Excerpted from Chilling in Antarctica, AAA Going Places, January-February 2010. This marks the end of your listening activity.